So good morning, everyone. And it's such a pleasure to have you all here this morning for our talk by Studio Art for its ongoing show, Together and Apart. I'm Ashna Singh, founder, director, Studio Art. I take this opportunity first to thank you all for being part of this collaborated effort and bringing this show together in this time. It's titled Together and Apart, curated by Studio Art, and it's written by Varun Nayar. Varun Nayar is a writer and editor with a special interest in lens-based practices in South Asia. He has written for National Geographic, Words Without Borders, Himal South Asian, and Foam magazine, among other publications, and currently works at the Museum of Art and Photography, which is MAP in Bangalore. Our very well 10 artists here in this group actually don't need an introduction, so I'm going to totally skip that part. And for all those who haven't yet seen the show in its physical space, it's on till the 30th of October at Studio Art. So please drop in or visit the viewing room on our website. We are undertaking all precautions, so we welcome you at the gallery. But do visit it on the website in the viewing room, www.studioartgallery.in. And Ravi, you're in Delhi. You haven't the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing you and chatting with you there too. I think Dorothea needs to put hers on mute. Is she there? Okay, I'll do it for her. Super. So I'd like to first start with this talk with a brief slideshow of Together and Apart, and this will give us an idea of the show, the installation. Before we get into the talk, I think that'll be helpful. Just gonna share my screen. Super. So we began on the 8th of September to the 30th of October. That is Baiju Parthan's work with Vivek Vilasini and the sculpture by Riyas Komu. This work is Jagannath Panda, Baiju Parthan in the screen. This slide has Vibha Galhotra's work in the next room, along with Jagannath Panda and Baiju Parthan. This has Ravi Agarwal's first work with Vibha Galhotra in the same room. A little peep into Abhimanue's work, Vivek Vilasini and Jagannath and Vibha in the other rooms. That's Riyas's work with Iranna's work. And then again, Iranna's work with Khalil Chishtee's work. This is on the left, Ravi Agarwal's second work with Vivek Vilasini and Jagannath's. And that's Veer Munshi's work. I'm going to read a paragraph from Varun's text. And this says, a library grows in a forest in Norway. In the year 2114, wood from 1,000 saplings will be used to make paper to print an anthology of 100 books. That till then will remain unseen. The forest caretakers are optimistic about their living time capsule, an enduring record that exemplifies a basic faith in our community. Earlier in the year 2021, 200 scientists from across the world signed their names against a climate report, declaring what the United Nations called Code Red for humanity. The situation is dire, it says, but it is yet unclear who is to blame. The report mentions some variations of the phrase human activity or human influence over 30 times in its first 10 pages. The word fossil fuel appears on the 53rd page first. Now, Together and Apart captures human emotions and interactions between humans and nature. how through the pandemic, the world witnessed nature's retaliations and repercussions due to the human interferences with nature. This change was forced upon the world. Emotions, impacts, and learnings were felt universally in an extremely united yet apart manner. We will structure this talk in 3 parts: how nature influences and impacts our life, and how thoughts have evolved due to those interferences. Then we will address human emotions and an evolution in our art practices, together yet keeping our distinct identity. I'd like to bring in Ravi and Vibha into my first question. Ravi's work explores key contemporary questions of ecology, society, urban space, and Vibha's deals with human relationships with nature, addressing the shift in topography and the impacts of globalization and growth. We under-recognize how nature plays a huge role. Sorry, 1 second. I think we under-recognize how nature plays a huge role in our lives, and I will just have to put my mail. So, keeping our relationships with nature, how do you both, in fact, as artists, see this shift personally and ecologically, and then seem to incorporate it into your work, keeping your relationship with nature? If you could mainly please give us post-pandemic experiences, that would be good. Thanks. Go ahead, Ravi.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if it's post-pandemic as yet. The pandemic for me has been an extended affair. But on the first question, well, pandemic also was a nature affair for me, because my day started with my morning run, and my outside thing was only my park, in a sense. And I've been writing a lot during the pandemic, and I think it's mostly to do with my reflections on this. But for me, on a basic thing, what is my impulse as an artist or as a person? So nature has had a very deep affective relationship with me from my childhood. It is something I've experienced very deeply. Forest or rivers, when I was growing up, it has stayed with me, and despite all the other things I've done. So for me, it is a very personal thing, and something which I feel it makes me feel in a certain way, and it makes me feel angry if somebody destroys something. So it's a very personal position, and everything else is, where the brain comes in, or your forms and your artistic possibilities come in, and you start doing something with it. But that is my basic impulse, in a sense. Even today, it is not an academic pursuit for me. The pursuit is very deeply felt. And of course, something we deeply feel, we explore more, we want to say more about it in whatever skills we have. So I like to write, I like to read, I like to do my photography and think of art forms. So it expresses itself in that way. The NGO I run is also about nature. Everything manifested in that way. But the base of the manifestation is a personal relationship. And you feel really sad when people don't acknowledge it or don't respect it. And of course, I've been doing it for a very long time, but now you can see, I see more shows on nature than I see anything else globally. Nature has become the flavor of the month. It's good for the thing, but we keep on saying it the ecological crisis. Yeah. I don't think it's a crisis. When you are going down a hill, you will end up at the bottom hurt. Yeah. So it's a condition which we started a long time ago.
Warning.
Well, right now we have no other way to go but end in a crisis. So if you fall down from a hill, ultimately you will get hurt. But during the fall, they started at the beginning of the fall. You will only think of the end of the fall. But we have been falling for a long time. And that's the way I feel about it.
True. And how are you incorporating this into your work now? What is it that
when, as I said, forms find themselves for me. So I'm limited also by the find. I mean, you have on our panel today, we have brilliant artists, and you give, if they want to do the same thing, they'll probably do it in 10 different brilliant ways. So I think we all do it in our own way. The forms we are familiar with, the skills we know, the This is our personal experience. That's why, it is a search for a form, constant search for a form for me. So you will keep on trying, something works, something doesn't work, you try something else. But the constant trial comes from a deep impulse. It's not like I'm giving up or I'm trying to achieve something. It's a deep need to express something. And in the way I can, I do it. And so you want to show it. I'm very happy you want to show it. The other artists want to acknowledge me. It's nice. I'm very, very happy. But I cannot do this by assuming this will happen. I'm just doing it because I need to do it.
Vibha, what about you? Yeah, I'll pass this to you now.
I resonate with Ravi in many ways because, my childhood experience was actually mostly with nature because my father was in a transferable job. So, mostly, end up making, nature as your friend. So wherever you go, so, my our father used to take us to these picnics every weekend. So that's why my relationship with, I lived in Yamunanagar, then I lived in Ambala. So, from there, we either used to go to Tajewala or to, Rishikesh for weekend picnics. So, that's why my relationship with rivers was, it was like very organic. So I don't know whether it was a relation or not. And to be very frank, when I came to Delhi, I was, working on my personal experiences. So most of my work was basically very personal. But when I saw the river or experienced the river for the first time, looking at it as a sewer rather than a river, that was the turning point in my work. Or then I started inquiring more about the ecological issues in the urban spaces all around the world. So, that's how my journey started. And, obviously it's come from the personal experiences and personal observations. So we are observers of the time. And I really feel that whatever is happening around us, that's mostly we express as an artist. So that's what my work is about. And sometimes there is a research involved. Sometimes it's, and I like to play with material as in your show. So, there is a material play in the work, which is actually about the speculation of living on Mars, where people are trying to find water on Mars. So, those are the images which are being bombarded on us as the future landscape for us. I don't know it's right or wrong. So I won't comment on that, but those are the landscapes which I have kind of, I am reappropriating those in my work right now. Yeah.
Then the constant human interferences with nature, we feel, which happen, and both you artists, of course, deal with this as well. So how do you then, for example, how are you now? What's your mindset to this kind of change that has brought in maybe to your work because of this human interference? I mean, this seems hugely human interfered with nature. What we are going through.
Yeah, see, as Ravi said that it was already there. So the fall is already there. So I think the causes we have created, the effects we have to bear. So so we are bearing those effects. And this pandemic is kind of seems like a last warning. So it has kept us in our cocoons. So we can imagine that what's going to happen with the human interference. We have experienced in the past also with all the wars and nuclear experiments. So we have seen those times, but I think this is something really larger, and now we need to act, or maybe we need to change our behaviors towards it. So that's what I think we are also adapting. So from last 2 years, we are rethinking, or kind of rethinking of our own behaviors with our immediate environment and as well as living patterns. So, that's what I am also trying to learn and unwind myself for those things. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And we feel that the unnecessary is finding its way out. I want to bring Jagannath into the next question. And his work is titled The Shadows of the Blue Moon. It's like a form floating in space, and it's a sense of Earth, which is impacted again by changes in the atmospheric composition. There is a sense of opaqueness in your work, Jagannath. How, I'd like you to elaborate, how do you think human relationship with nature missed out on addressing the realities of existence through your work? I think you need to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah. So this is wonderful ideas you're bringing together, all these artists. And for me, I grew up in Orissa, and it's the most dense forested land around, and never felt like nature has been an issue because I grew up there. And the first time I felt like these are the issues to talk about through my art when I moved to Gurgaon and see this constant changing landscape, and you became a participant and actor to this whole kind of act. And I'm just next to my house is facing towards Arabali, and every day morning I'm seeing the new suns rising and how the landscapes are changing. Sometimes this very very fragile and very intense changes that gives hope and possibility in every aspect. So the kind of work, my practice changed through the last 5-10 years around seeing self as a witness to the time and participant to the time. You particular this work what you're talking about, I think I created in 2019, which is I generally never done such a patch of blue work with a lot of imagery, which is sense of visibility, invisibility of the self. I feel like nature as it's a fast body of any human, any existence of any being. And everybody talked about the wealth and the secondary body, but if there's some way there's a communication gap between your primary body and the secondary body, that's the create a lot of fault if that communication not built. And I always quest for myself and understand how that communication could be built, because that's why you see that there's a sense of detail and sense of boldness every time acquire and disappear in my work, and that's the work you see. There's the biosphere of the other side of space floating around, and the bold form itself.
Unmute yourself, Ashna.
I think, is it also not addressing, it is addressing reality, but it's missing out on a lot of content. As in you are addressing it, but you're addressing it in a very silent manner. And there is life and hope on that, which represents the earth as well. You are also kind of a feeling that, is there a feeling of missing out or the content is lost because of this opaqueness?
Exactly, but the sense of looking at things, because the time, the way the digital world is overpowering, the mind is restless, and there's a lot of detailing or a lot of intent of relationship around us. We are missing out, but I think this pandemic have taught us in a many level to see ourselves and understand ourselves in a different perspective. In a way, when you are dealing with the form, you see that there's a content of something you are seeing nothing around. It's a kind of a sphere, but once you contemplate, you discover the form and narrative around. And there's a sense of looking in a larger perspective of art from the sky or anywhere. But in the same time, I'm more interested how the trees are communicating under the surface of art, how they're building their own community and their friends. That's also always interest me when I walk around the Aravali Park or cycle around the city and understand what the contrast nature of Gurgaon been evolving around.
We missed out doing that initially. I think we were also busy in our lives and we missed out seeing the minor details of life in general. And now I'm going to bring this to Iranna. Iranna, your work, actually, your childhood linked to farming, your schooling, your spirituality, which shows in your work, reflects your life, a sense of society and who you are. And ash, like the vibhuti, being such an important material in your work, reflects the fragility of life and human emotions. This work is ash to blossom. I think you had almost said blossom to ash, and then I thankfully made you change it to ash to blossom. It just happened ash to blossom, which I was very happy for, it going from ash to positivity. So how is this? How has this impacted your work? And this transformation has strengthened your art practice now. And how has it changed the mindset? Because when you deal with a material like that, you're anyway already dealing with the with life and change.
Yeah, I think, thank you so much. This question is something like half an hour question, which is asked, from my childhood to as I am here. I like to make it shorter, Ash, Ash has a very, from my childhood association with, practice at home, because we have been, even my grandmother used to tell that, sometimes, we didn't get to find the vibhuti because it's poor. So she used to ask me to be, there's a chula. So take that ash and put on your forehead, that type of practice, that was so meaningful for me, from childhood. Because as even slowly, you keep on practicing, it is a part of your life, unknowingly, knowingly, you don't realize, things are how it is important. Ash, it has its own values. So, like when you die person, when you burn, when you burn the tree, it become an ash. Even if you even decads, even murderer, even any holy person, the moment it's burned, it's become an holy ash. There is no name. So it is such a vast landscape which I can see in that, because there is no name. It's become a holy ash. So beautiful thing which was, and it was, you were unknowingly you were also practiced from your childhood, So that practice makes you more realization, and which is the time I can connect, today's time or past time, you want to the history, open history. So I have been working on little realizing the violence, the people are how become violent and for the material life, for the which is not required as a person, which is, you only required certain things which is, survive. So end of the day, these are all, sometimes it's an ego, sometimes you have a greedy, sometimes you are in a power. So, and plus, if you open history, every corner, there is always violence to keep the power, either wealth. So, like, end of the day, you have to live, so nobody realized that, you have to live. This when you're not, when you can't even carry your own body. So this become an ash. So one thing, it is sometimes it makes you self-realization. there is so many corners, so many areas which it touches, that the material itself, plus the bringing to in my idea also. Because I have practicing as art, so it is well connected with my art practice plus through my idea. So when I said that, when particularly you're painting, which is, life and death again, which is positivity, negativity. So it is sometimes, for the surface, it looks very literal. Sometimes it looks practically very literal. But there is a lot of under carpet. There's so many meanings behind, like even in the layer, even in idea, even in message to the society, message to yourself. There's so many things I try to bring inside, So that's how I connect to the ash,
And I think we kind of realized that there was a huge change in our lives in the past 2 years in terms of not, with the social distancing. We were all dealing with it together, but then we were all separated in a way. And I felt that I'm sure we all did, the use of technology and the aspect of technology really transformed our lives. I'm going to address this to Baiju. His work has a lot to do with change and transformation in the aspect of technology. And there too, change is inevitable. Baiju, how now, I'm kind of going a little philosophical into this. So would you talk about your work and how the work feeds philosophically into the technological aspect of the emotion during the past 2 years? And how has this impacted your being, your thought, your art practice?
Basically, my work has this, let's say, two distinct streams. One is this technology-based work, which I sort of try to reflect on the impact of technology on our existence. And then there is another stream which is extremely personal, veering towards metaphysical thinking, very close to what we call deep ecology or shamanism and those sort of things, which is very much kind of a one-to-one relationship with nature and the forces of nature, almost personifying them as entities, even that much. So I have these two streams. And the work which is in the show is basically on the reflections on technology and its impact and how change is inevitable. We cannot escape from that. The very fact that we have a time-bound existence, change is there. That's the way we experience time. So speaking of the pandemic, I think it's an ecological crisis to speak about it. Basically, if you take a look at it from a larger perspective, the human population, it sounds harsh and cruel to say that we are overpopulating the planet. It's a kind of, I see it more like a kind of a corrective mechanism, which is maybe through our mistake, maybe through our indiscretion it has happened, but it's a kind of a culling mechanism. It's sort of reducing our population in some ways or the other. So I think more pandemics definitely would come through because we have exceeded the limits of our the planet's ability to accommodate one particular species, across by which we have destroyed biodiversity, we have destroyed everything, we have toxified the planet. It goes on. It's an endless list of things which we have done. So I think more of these things are bound to happen, and in some ways there's a kind of inevitability to it. So one cannot complain, that, or I don't know whether we can turn the clock back. Easily. It's going to be a long-term process. And from that point, I'm sorry to be so negative about it, but that's the way I see it. And what I see about this particular situation is that in the last 2 years, we have all become so accustomed to, virtual meetings, virtual commuting. So many things. It's as though we have sort of got naturalized into using technology much more than ever before, before the pandemic. So I think a post-pandemic world will be very different from what we left behind. We'll be mostly, we are so comfortable using Zoom. I had never used Zoom before the pandemic, so there was no need to do it. There was always a possibility of meeting people. There was a possibility of bumping into each other. So those things are kind of vanished in many ways. I mean, we don't have art openings anymore. People don't come to the gallery like before. You look at online, and then if you feel like you may go, you may not go. And the openings are completely stopped. Though I myself, I was not that good at attending openings because I kind of, more of an introvert and nerdy person. So, and I tend to keep to myself. So it hasn't affected me that much because in a way it's okay. I don't have to go for openings, which is a relief for me. That way it's okay. But having said that, the work which you mentioned, it's about how, the city I live in, which is Bombay. I was born in Kerala. I spent many years there. So in that sense, I grew up in a very, nature was very much present in that particular environment. From there, I came to Goa, which is again very rich in natural beauty, and it's not in a place which is industrialized in that sense. Then came to Bombay. Bombay was exact opposite of these two places. So Bombay is where I actually experienced what we call urban reality. Till then, okay, one sort of existed somewhere in between. You have an education which is mostly, which happens, which is, let's say, which sort of trains you to be aware of urban life, but you actually don't live it in Kerala or Goa. That's what I feel. When you come to Bombay or Delhi, you actually experience that the life in the city. So that's where I started working with this how to reflect the immediate environment I live in, which was about the hustle and bustle of the city. So I have a whole series of work which kind of tries to emulate street views of Google, this was before Street View was available in Bombay, before it was included. So I had tried to do those sort of works. Then in terms of technology, it's kind of wonders how the kind of the existential shift which is happening through the use of technology, in the sense that day by day, more and more of our activities are happening in the virtual space. The kind of the presence of the physical keeps reducing in gradually. It's an erosion which has been going on for quite some time, and now during the pandemic it has happened much more visibly, and you can actually feel the physicality of it reducing it further. So I think this has will create a lot of existential problems, and one doesn't know how we will address it. I mean, there will be a lot of crisis of the self. How do you define a self where you are 3/4 of your life you spend in a virtual space and a small fraction in the physical space? This is going to be issues which we'll have to deal with as we go on. And the work which I have is it's about Bombay city as it was known at some point, let's say, as the city of dreams, which was directly linked to the Bollywood. Before it had become Bollywood as an industry, it was a place of people would come to Bombay dreaming to be actors and stars, and that was kind of
dreaming about being part of Bombay. Yeah.
Very much. I mean, that's kind of. I came to Bombay when it was Bombay during the 80s. It was a very different city from what it is today. So, and there used to be this taxi cabs, this old Premier Padmini taxi cab, which was very much part of the landscape of Bombay. And then at some point they just vanished. So, that work is basically about that kind of change. It's a little, nostalgic representation of how the city is no longer the way it was. That's the kind of thing. So that's the way to sum up. That's the way I work with. Unfortunately, the work which is here is not in the line which I spoke about, that very subjective metaphysical work, which is more close to ecological concerns and things like that. But still, something. So it is there, somewhere hidden.
I think that this is not just a relationship with nature that we have all gone through, but it has also got a lot to do with the emotions that we have all felt. And I'd like to open this up to everybody. How is this change a welcome change? The change, like for example, Baiju just spoke about with technology, and unfortunately, yes, that we all don't meet as often as we did, or don't kind of have those huge gatherings or galleries and openings and all that kind of stuff. But has this way of life kind of cleaned up few things, or you think that the one before that was a more easier one, or do you find that the fundamentals and priorities here are more addressed? I'd love to hear. Anybody? Yeah, unmute yourselves.
I think
Whatever you feel has been...
It's too early to say for me, because things spring back. But at a personal level, it's been cleansing, but also been a big reminder of how mortal we are and how wonderful we are. So I think not to take things for granted, and that time is not just to be filled up. It's very precious.
Well said. So well said. Anybody else?
It's very different here in New York City. Whenever I go to my other neighborhood in Bushwick, which is in Brooklyn. So, I mean, this city has seen really, really worse in last year when almost.
Sorry, just.
Yeah. So when like more than, almost 2,000 people were dying every day, and but now when I go back again in the same neighborhood, it's back to normal. Like there's so many more people are back in the city, and it has gone more crazier. The youngsters they have come back from other states, and you can't even tell that there was a pandemic here. And it's really, and when I see there, it's exactly like we have never learned from any war. So whenever we are, life is back to normal, we are ready to jump back again to another disaster, which is, which is good. I mean, I don't know whether it's good or bad, but this is how it is, But it's very strange, it was last year at this time, it was just like a ghost town. The whole New York City was a ghost town. One can drive, there was nobody, no cars were there, drive through all the streets. And now it's really, 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 I think we are ready for another.
No, don't say that. But, artists, for example, have always been in their studio. Honestly, someone comes or doesn't come, it doesn't matter to them, because they've always been in their studio. They've always been working there. It's been a whole journey on their own, literally their studios and themselves. So has there been a huge amount of change, except for, of course, for you all, in the sense of forget friends and everything, but a day-to-day of working? Have you, galleries still have people coming in and openings happening and all that kind of stuff. But for artists, they've been working like this forever, where they're just actually secluded in their studios and they're very happy with their space and their time. And has this brought about more time, space? Or is it an easier way to conduct and work? Riyas, what do you feel?
Hi. Hello, everyone. I think I have not understood this pandemic at all. I mean, that's one of my crises. But at the same time, me being maybe been very public since last 10 years, not just as a practicing artist. I was more known as an administrator. And, so in those contexts, when I look at what's going on today in the art world, people struggle to survive as practicing artists. And, I've been kind of communicating with art students, young artists, and also looking at the growing disparity in the social space and further alienations which is happening. So I've been, not just personally thinking about me as an artist, or whether I've never been in the studio, maybe for the last 10 years. In the recent time, I can say that the pandemic officially didn't allow me to kind of maybe travel because of the protocols, but otherwise, like most of you, it's been a time for contemplation. I could reanalyze about what I did since the beginning of my art practice, the period I came here, my family's history as somebody, the ancestors were involved in seafaring, their location, where they lived, their migration histories, and they eventually, my grandfather becoming a farmer, and my involvement along with my mother doing farming. So I think maybe the pandemic has allowed, and if I could say that, to introspect or contemplate a little bit more, which was not the case for me. I mean, not just before 2 years, maybe since last 10 years. Yeah.
Super. And your work, Riyas, attributes to this relevance of the material used, which is again close to nature. And it reflects a certain civilizational memory. Terracotta being a form, again, a material close, where it's got a certain cleansing feeling to it. And this sculpture, which is contemporary hole, has this hole on the side of the face with a kind of a no ability to listen. How would you connect this to the relevance of what we're talking about with the material and the emotion in regard?
You see, as I said, I mean, my involvement with a particular location has a connection with this particular work. Could be like, I mean, maybe last 10 years, I've been trying to see, the Indian map upside down, because that's the site where I was involved in, because most of the projects initially I engaged was to do with maritime history, the history of, sharing, the history of knowledge, and a huge history of, like, I mean, whether it is Silk Route or Spice Route. I mean, so I still remember, the reason for this terracotta entering into my head was not the art historic domain. It was one, fine day, like, I mean, the Kerala Council for Historical Research, the director of that, PJ Cherian, invited me to kind of do the Parthan excavation site and showed me, wells of shards, pottery shards, which was collected. And eventually, like, I mean, we took that conversation and he got in touch with Vivek Sundaram. And you remember that huge video plus site-specific work, which he produced called, Black Gold. So there was certain consciousness which built around a location and the idea of human, the making of human, where, the clay, the terracotta, I mean, the early, making of, the objects and, the human settlement, certain civilizational memories or Indus or anything, like, I mean, this particular material has, even in recently, like, I mean, one of the jokes which was circulating around, the person who's caught in Kerala, I mean, he was trying to kind of, recognize that, I mean, he has a clay lamp which was made by the hand of the prophet. I mean, so the material can be attributed to, certain, periods and certain civilizational memories, as you said. I think that could be, I mean, also, my own inheritance. I mean, the location where the Parthan excavation project is happening. So, I have huge family settlements there, and that, I mean, for them, the sea was, the site of, their own, upbringing histories. So I think, I mean, the work, the materiality of the work doesn't necessarily talk about the idea of art making. I mean, as you said, it brings a civilizational memory into the work. Yeah.
I'm going to take this to Khalil now. Again, talking about material, actually. Khalil, you work a lot with plastic, and that is a very sensitive kind of medium that connects to nature. It's almost in a way that protects a part of nature. But this work, for example, which is the explanation sculpture, the face sculpture with the hand of Urdu, calligraphy done on it. Just talk about, just connect the human emotion to this, where identity has been an issue, or communication and connection has been an issue with this work in the past even 2 years.
Okay, thank you very much. The first thing I have to say, I feel so good after seeing other white beards. I thought I was the only one alive. But in one screen, this work, people who are familiar with my work, they know that I work with the trash bag, which is I do recycle things, which is amazing way of giving another life form to something which has been discarded. The working with discarded materials started in my very early age because of my Sufi family tradition, that we need to question all the structures, and the impermanence of all the structures. So, and especially, questioning everything which is idea of worth, which is what is worthless and what is not. So my calligraphy work, which is there, this calligraphy work started with the idea of the Muslim religious beautiful calligraphies, where even people who understand Arabic, they can't even, the emphasis is so much on the form, and it looks so beautiful, but you won't be able to read it, what it says. So I started making work where it has all that aesthetic qualities, but instead of taking word from some higher book, I started using curse words, so the form is exactly the same. So idea was to questioning the worth of holiness, what is really, and then how a beautiful form can change by just changing the content of it. So this work, explanation, where I've used the head of Julius Caesar, one of the dictator in history. So in our culture, the palm face is like which is like curse, like lanat. So that face is covered, and in Urdu is written all the great things, all the factual good things about United States. This country offers whatever to immigrants, and all that stuff. So, but even I thought, what is the need of explanation when one needs to explain anything? And there, when I started questioning that, then I came to understanding that whenever there is a need of explanation, that means that the basic connection is missing. And when one comes to a point where one needs to explain oneself, that means even a dictator can just have a palm at the face, or so for me, it's very important to establish that connection, human to human connection, without all the identities that we are carrying, all the gender associations that we are carrying. It's just on a very human level, like on a very, like I always say, I'm different if blood doesn't run in my veins, if coffee is running in my veins, then I'm different than anyone else. Otherwise, we should immediately, feel that connection when meeting with another human, in a place. But all this, whatever, all these forces or elements that brought pandemic to us or war to us is in their interest to reduce us to a concept, identity, because it's very difficult to harm a human being, but it's very easy to destroy a concept. You are not a person, you are a Muslim. You are not a person, you are a Hindu. So just one can commit any harsh, act against that. So this work and was all about looking at these things.
Yeah. And, from what you've just mentioned, I'm going to bring it to Veer because it kind of connects, where there have been such repercussions of interferences with ecology in so many ways, whether even Veer, for example, there have been so many changes, whether it's political, social, emotional, coming from a kind of a zone of conflict, of identities, carrying forward from what Khalil is saying. Though your work for the show has two connotations to it. One is the endangered, the hangul, the Kashmiri deer, as we call it, and also the urban spaces and migrants. And so, I'd love to have you elaborate on that a little, keeping all this in mind, or more.
Yeah, thank you, Ashna, to bring us all together here. It's a pleasure to meet you all, and also for your wonderful show in a wonderful space. Really, your space is complementing the works, and that's that last visit earlier to that. It's really coming up very well. To me, because Ravi and Vibha and others were talking about this childhood nature, I was born in a deep, what people call heaven, but it didn't look to me because I was so much consumed in it. So I never felt like everything looked fake in front of it, even the color, the shade of a color. So it never appealed me to be part of the nature. At the same time, till it turned a curse land. Because every beautiful place is a turned curse land, maybe Northeast or Kashmir. That drew my attention, or maybe migration of myself from the place also made me to be closer to the place and think of it emotionally, humanly, and many other ways. I think in pandemic, you got more introspection into many ways. Like in this pandemic, it was a big halt, big tear-out, which much needed, in fact. What is our role on the planet, sort of? Maybe so many things have got, so much trash got out, and we were talking about how do we feel now and how do we feel like earlier. I think a lot of trash is out, but a lot of missing is there. Like that magic is sort of gone, maybe temporary, I hope. To be virtual is not all that complete, I feel. Now, regarding the work, I would say that, like the Hangul, I would always refer it with the community which is at the verge of extinction. Like the Hangul, which would be seen in museums. I've been always referring it with, I personify it, like then the migration takes place. As we all migrate to the bigger cities and leave behind the green pastures and these free spaces, when you immediately realize in big cities, in an apartment, even a 2x2 balcony becomes very important, the space. The sense of space changes totally. So likewise, you come to the cities for many reasons, socially or social, for work, economic reasons, or maybe political and personal reasons. Everyone has their own reason to come to the cities and make it a home. So came I to Delhi for 30 years back, and adjusted myself into a place where the space crunch is there. As I say, hunger also lost that space, so loses the humans. 12 years back or 14 years back, I moved to suburb, Gurgaon, and see how city had grown. Believe me, it was only one shipbuilding here that was the landmark building close to my place, and rest was all green pastures. You could see, look far beyond the horizons. And overnight, everything turned and changed like so fast, rapid changes, glass towers all around. That's what we call progress. And then one realizes, where does hunger go? In other side, in flip part, the conflict in Kashmir saved some part of environment ecology because it was not touched, because there was no development. This is a human intervention which changes the whole system of what we call growth. Is not growth or affects the ecology or nature. I think many times I felt, which is not right to say the conflict saved Kashmir. I mean, in environment, many things got saved. When I see the development, it goes so, as I already said, it rips it. You may soon see not shikara being, water pattern, it might be motor pattern. Like things like that, many things keep changing in developments. I think those are the concerns, what one thinks of doing things. And my role has been, it has been shifted to be my studio practice, then come into the communication. I thought studio practice was not enough for me, so I engaged with the communities and to see the source where the conflict started and how to address that source through many ways. Like even bringing the craft was my only to be, because everyone is affected in various ways with it. So how to bring it? So nature becomes part of it. But for me, it's more human. I keep going there. Many years I had not been there, but at one point I thought, no, I have to go into the place where I come from and where the conflict is, and because I've been engaged work-wise with it. So whenever I go, I'm always asked, why do you come for? I always say that I get oxygen from here. But I don't say oxygen from the lake or Nigin Lake or Pahad, I say from the people. So that's my connect with the people, and that's how I keep going with coming. I say, as long as I have this oxygen in my studio, I stay here. When it finishes, I go back. So that's how my journeys are. So I'm going day after.
Awesome. Have a good trip. And coming to from this and from what Khalil said, I'm going to ask Vivek to talk a little about his work, because there's a huge amount of there's a feeling of familiarity actually, Vivek, in your work, and you work a lot with ideas where you have actually put this whole setup of this Kathakali in the point where the death of Socrates, for example, and how there is when he's drinking poison and the whole fighting superstitions, the lack of critical thinking, at that time when there's been an intellectual silence. And like Khalil had also mentioned, that when the harsh realities or something harsh that would like to be expressed but in a more subtler, softer manner, in your vibrant colors kind of, come across with the aesthetic beauty of camouflaging this in a more subtler manner. We had this conversation, I think we'd be activists if not artists, if we were more vocal and loud about what we had to say. So I'd like you to, address this a little.
Yeah. Actually, I did mention that I'm not an activist, but an artist. But I would love to be in our youth, and now it is mostly to kind of point at certain things that we think are really worrying us, and sort of justifying our existence by doing that. It is not, not we're not that brave enough to go and actually fight these kind of problems. We have seen, like, in the last 10 years, like, how many serious intellectuals have been silenced and some have been killed. And so this is something that's worrying, and we don't know how many more are going to meet that kind of fate. Yeah. So these are very tough times, not just the pandemic. There has been an intellectual kind of pandemic that is happening in the last several years, and that is worrying. And so this was so we have, I mean, like, when I was much younger, there was this we have this Kathakali theater, which is like the state theater institute called Kalamandalam. They teach dance and drama and all that. They're quite a lot of serious people are there. So sometimes they stage these Othello or some of these other things that is not from mythology, and that had fascinated me as a kid. The possibility of that. So they were also trying to say that we're trying to do something contemporary with that form. So this is one aspect, and for me, this kind of transit places and how people access them and how they internalize them and how they try to get salvation through them or create identities through them. And this has been fascinating for me. And I'm not interested in just the indigenous. No? I'm always looking at alternatives. And even in my, like when you talk about climate change, I think what we need now is a deep adaptation. Like Ravi said, we are already rolling. Now, in between that rolling down the hill, we need to adapt. That is the solution. And for that, one of my responses has been to create this food forest. It's a very biodiverse, edible landscape. And also it has useful plants. It has plants for butterflies, for insects, for birds, and also water bodies and all that. So this is like a space that I can demonstrate that this is possible. And there are like new kind of plants that we are introducing. See, I have no problem with that because in this place where I am sitting, close to here, we have a lot of animals and birds and, not birds, mostly animals, which had come down from the Himalayas to probably Sri Lanka in the last ice age. But since the last ice age thawed, or heated up like quite fast, some of them got stuck in Munnar. I'm sitting in Munnar. And so we have the Himalayan tar and we have a Nilgiri tar, The Nilgiri tar came from this tar that the Himalayan tar that got stuck here, or the Nilgiri marten. And Kerala has got a lot of opportunities to, nature is quite abundant here. And if we are careful, we can get to know all these forest rangers or all these wildlife societies and then get into the forest on the pretext of counting butterflies or tigers or all that. So I've been doing that from childhood. So when you climb up to a certain space, like you see butterflies that you find in the Himalayas, or you find some certain plants there. Like I was shocked to see rhododendrons in the lesser Himalayas, in Mukteshwar. Once we went for a camp and there were rhododendrons growing there. So I said, we have rhododendrons in this thing. So somebody said that it was probably some, like the Britishers or some of these people must have brought it there. Then I spoke with one botanist in Mukteshwar, and he said, no, rhododendrons were there from the last ice age in Munnar, the Palani Hills, he said. So anyway, so what I'm trying to do is to introduce a lot of plants. Some of them are, it is natural in some other areas. It grows in this place. Like And also one of the things that I'm doing is like there are certain nutritious plants or certain beneficial plants like for diabetic people, like for them to have sugar. So we have certain yakon roots which you can make into sugar, and we don't have the receptors to digest that. So this diabetic patients can eat this as sugar, or certain like sweet potatoes that are like maybe 2,200 rupees a kilo. It doesn't have to be that expensive. Everyone can actually grow that. So I propagate those kind of things and give it to farmers and tell them to also give it to other people, and so that we can eat it for free. So there's a lot of people trying to enrich this. Like biodiversity that we have, so that like Amazon was burning. I think last year or something. There was a huge fire. I'm not saying we can give back all of what was there, but there are so many useful plants that is, useful in the sense that we have classified as useful. I think all plants are useful. But we can give back some, maybe acai berry, or there are so many fruits that people are growing. And in India, there is this huge movement. So I chose this place so that this is like in the cusp of a temperate and a tropical place to experiment and see to the fullest range, like what can grow here. We're growing apples here. We don't need. What I'm saying is, like, if fossil fuels are going to be a problem, if mileage, carbon print is going to be a problem, these are also ways of adapting to it. So this is this food forest is the other thing that I'm doing as a response. Then other works are there, but I'm saying this nature and this thing is a reality. So there is no need to explain it to people. You don't need to. Maybe there's one person or something in the country who doesn't understand that. He might be thinking that growing old, you might be feeling colder. But people do understand, So now it's about adapting. This is the situation. We are rolling down a hill. Now, how do you adapt? So we need those kind of deep adaptation techniques that has to be learned. Like, and and I think this food forest kind of this thing is a kind of good thing for the future. Like our parks could be that. Now people could go and instead of having huge lawns, you can have food forests. In cities, in roadsides, you can. It's good for animals and birds and people also.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, but lucky you. So I guess you haven't really changed much at all, and your ways have pretty much.
No. I think we are all always responding
almost
to
like blessed.
What is it?
I call it blessed, being around nature like that.
No, this is a project. I hope things come out of it, like a couple of books and some other things come out in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
But we are setting a stage for it. Like, which also I would like to share this with other people.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think Abhimanue is not there, and I think we've lost him. Some connection. Oh, you're here. Okay. So just Abhimanue, your work, of course, an arrangement, a composition of forms, and it's quite interesting that how you mentioned how this empties your mind and of past influences, and then you look around with a new perspective and a new vision. It's almost like already a journey of self-realization and self-awareness. I'd like you to talk about your work in terms of the human relation, actually the human evolution process that you have felt in these past 2 years and reflecting that to your work. I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Hi, Ashna. Yeah, because basically I'm a painter. And for the last many years, I have done different things, from figurative things to drawings. And for the last 12 years, I was into kind of, maybe you can call it a kind of abstract, non-representation, kind of work which I'm doing. I'm really enjoying it.
Can't hear you.
Not
I can't hear you clearly. I can't hear you clearly.
Okay. I don't know, some problem with my mic or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, nothing to say about my work. Really, I'm enjoying what I'm doing now. And, that's all. Nothing too much.
Well, I guess maybe the simplicity of it just, when you come to your work, I've had many say, oh, mind shuts off and it's a more calmer feeling. Is there one thing that you guys all, maybe one line of something that you really miss from the time before and you'd like that back? Just any one-to-one, just come on.
I want my hug back. I miss that hug,
Urdu mein bolo.
I don't know when last time I hugged anyone. Now we don't even shake hands.
Yeah. No, we hug here. We
don't fair. I don't hug strangers anymore. Yes, I want that.
Vibha, what about you?
I miss travel.
I miss travel.
I miss travel and meeting new people, for sure.
Jagannath? You're on mute. Just unmute yourselves. This is almost.
Hello, yeah. Sorry, is the question about what we are missing?
Yeah, one thing that you.
Panda, you are mute. Can't hear you.
I unmute. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
So is that the question of what we are missing?
Yes. What do you miss before the?
Are you missing any?
Yeah. Missing traveling is really we missing because the missing of the people, the artists, especially the artists and art opening and the friends. So those are the really missing part because it's some kind of
on speak. That's on a speaker. That's why. Sorry, Hanji.
Okay. So I think that's the missing part as an artist. But you've been practicing in studio, but always you feel energized when you meet your friends and talk. That not be possible through any webinar or talk. That's personal human connections are very important. Not been to Orissa for a long time. Not seen the family there.
Baiju, what about you?
Basically, I think it's the same, travel probably. And of course, when you go back to places which you were familiar earlier, the way you experienced it before, like Bombay, you go to the DT area, it is so deserted, there's nobody there. That hustle and bustle life, it's sort of missing, it's a vibe which you relate to, which you identify with the city. That's not longer there. So I'm quite envious of Chishtee because he says New York is back to what it was before. I wish Bombay could also go back to. That hasn't happened here, unfortunately. So that I think I missed that. Though I'm not much of a person who mixes around that much, but still, that vibe, that energy, I think that is not. I miss it really.
That's true. Ravi, Riyas, Veer. Iranna keeps coming in.
I think shows started, but you have forgotten how to go to it. You really have to really make effort to come out or to go for a show opening or something like that. Yeah, that change has happened. Something.
Yeah. got very comfortable in our own little zone of cocoon in a way where we have to really force ourselves to step out sometimes.
Unlike earlier, you like opening, it's a magic, you meet people and do things. But here now, you make an effort, even if it's around. People have started showing that it's nice.
Iranna. Iranna, don't be so serious, man.
It's not a holiday.
I'm not in serious. I'm sitting in my place in Bijapur in Karnataka. I'm keep on trying to coordinating. One of my friends has arrived, so I have to be, something, but it is but still, try to attend all your talk. Oh, I don't want to miss anything.
Ashna, I just, maybe, in connection with the work itself, because there's something which you miss is the idea of conversations. I mean, I feel, we miss it a lot. And I always had an attitude to kind of listen quite a lot. I mean, it's been, one of my obsession always. I don't know whether it started with music or, listening to people who speak, or also maybe following a certain kind of a tradition, the orality, which actually ingrained in our culture. So I just wanted to tell, maybe connection with what, even Vivek was talking about, or even Baiju or, Ravi pointed out. And so I just thought, I'll just tell about this particular work a little bit, because, I feel, I would just to tell you a story about the idea of hearing, which is considered as one of the first sadhanas. So there was one story that, which I, enjoyed hearing it after actually making this particular sculpture from one senior artist. So it's like, a Rakshasa enters a king's in a palace and throws 3 skulls. You must have heard the story. 3 skulls in front of him and gives him 3 days and says that you have 3 days to answer which skull is the best. So most of the people fail. And there was one Pandit who was, we call today, the intellectual. He asked for the permission to kind of decode this Rakshasa's, threat. And he asked also for a road. And he puts through one ear of the skull, and immediately it comes out, of the other ear. And then he puts the road to the other ear, and it comes through his mouth. Then the other road, just goes down, and it comes through his heart. So, just to, contextualize, so he goes into explaining that the first person heard, but never conceived anything, or, he never took it as a sadhana. The second person heard and he conceived, but he was more interested in spitting it out, talking, to show himself. The third one, he never showed himself, and he conceived it and, engulfed it. He made it a practice, to survive in a world like this as one of his sadhana, and appropriate to the natural ways like on which Vivek was talking about. So it's just thought maybe it's interesting to kind of, tell the story in relationship with this particular sculpture, which is called Contemporary Whole. So I thought, there's something which I wanted to speak about with the work, but the opportunity didn't come. So I just added it.
Thank you for sharing, because this story means a lot. And yes, there is the power of listening, which is why they always say the power of listening. We're all so busy talking, because when someone else is talking, we are actually thinking of what to say. So we are not actually listening to what they are saying. We are processing on what we will say next, and there are often times that we miss out on listening, and then we miss out on that learning. And thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to end this. I'm going to thank you all so much for being so cooperative.
I have one thing to mention, sorry.
Yes, please. Of course.
I think the beautiful thing that came out of the pandemic, I mean, like, which I think now that how much people were relying on art when we were in, confined in small our homes. Like, we were listening to music, we were watching movies, we were reading books, we were looking at the paintings and making sculptures. So how the importance of art, and so I think, and when we go back to normal life, we all the governments have so much less funding for this, something which everyone's life is so much relies on. So I think this is very important that like whomever I was talking to, either reading a book, mentioning a book, referring to some kind of nice movie or music or a nice artist to look at, so that's the only thing I thought I should highlight here.
It's true, and but I think that maybe we as individuals can provide that for people we enjoy being with, or galleries can, or we as artists can, and at least that way we can do our best in showing good art. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add before we close this session? Anything that comes to anyone's mind, whether it's about the show or it's just about the scenario or something that you feel where you would probably want to pick up next after? Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you again. Really had a lovely time, and it was so nice to just dive into reading more and more about all the artists as well. I almost say I've grown up looking at been in this since 2003, and my connection with each one is special, where I make it a point to go to their studios and have a conversation, because that's something I as a different artist, music being my first love, but I think more so art now, I have shared with each one of you. And I hope that continues soon and starts soon, because that traveling and doing these studio visits have a huge, it attributes a huge, a special space, whether it's for my own evolution or it's for my own connection, and something that I enjoy doing. So thank you again, and giving me the opportunity to have this conversation, and all of you coming together. And thank you for doing this show for Studio Art, and look forward to enjoying ourselves with a glass of wine soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashna.
Thank you, Ashna.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for bringing together.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.